Hey everyone, this is Bill. When we recorded this episode last night, we unfortunately ran into a few minor technical difficulties in the back end, which led to us not being able to use our primary recording. Fortunately, we have a secondary recording that we're able to upload, and we'll be using that. There are a couple of minor differences in quality between the two. You may notice a couple of balance issues, for which we apologize, and there is some minor desyncing in the video recording that you'll see on YouTube. But beyond that, it is one of our better episodes, I feel. We have a great conversation about a great topic, and in the end, I think you'll still enjoy the episode. Thanks for listening.
Welcome to the Sandersonian Institute of Cosmere Studies, where there's always another secret.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Sandersonian Institute of Cosmere Studies. Today is episode 62 on July 27th, 2020. I am Bill, and I'm joined, as always, by my sprightly co-hosts, Amy and Jordan. Welcome, guys.
Hey, what's a
How
good
are y'all
one?
doing?
I was trying to figure out what you'd do for this week, and I was just like, what's it going to be?
With my whole body, I would have tried to dance for you, but I don't really want to.
I personally would try and turn into a bowl of steam, but I'm not that flexible.
Or a tuber and roll around on a table.
No, never a tuber.
No.
Vegetables, vile weeds.
Before we get started, we do want to remind you that the Sandersonian Institute of Cosmere Studies is not a spoiler-free podcast. That means if there's something in the Cosmere that you haven't read and you're worried about hearing spoilers, you might want to go read those first, then come back and join in this discussion. This is particularly true today, as what we're discussing is the Syl interlude from the as-yet unpublished Rhythm of War. We were originally going to talk about Sanderson's Second Law of Magic tonight, but since our last episode, Brandon has decided to open the floodgates a little bit and has been sharing a lot of fun new stuff with us. In tonight's episode, we are going to be discussing, as I said, the Sylphrena interlude that he sent out with his newsletter on July 7th. For those of you who do listen to the podcast recordings or watch the videos on YouTube after the fact, we do want to remind you that it's possible for our listeners to interact with us live via chat as we record each episode at www.twitch.tv/innkeeperstable. We record every other Monday night starting at 7:30 p.m. Pacific Time, 10:30 p.m. Eastern. So please join us, take part in the discussion, engage with each other, talk to some people who love the Cosmere as much as you do, as much as we do. It's a great group, so come join us. Now, the Sandersonian Institute of Cosmere Studies is made possible by the support of our listeners and patrons. The show, of course, will continue to be free, but if you want to help us out, head on over to patreon.com/Cosmere Studies. Even $1 or $2 per episode really will help us out as we work to improve the show. Patrons will get immediate access to our Discord channel where you can talk about the show and the Cosmere with other listeners. We've got a great community. We've got discussions about, honestly, just about everything under the sun. Very, very positive vibe in there, so it's just a great group. You'll also get early access to bonus episodes, exclusive access to other bonus content, and other good stuff. So, thank you so much to our current patrons and just to everybody who's listening, because we really appreciate it.
Yes.
All right, guys, let's dive right in. As I said, this was released as part of Brandon's newsletter. Now, to our listeners, if you haven't signed up for Brandon's newsletter, do it. First off, it comes in frequently enough that you're not going to ever feel spammed. You're actually going to be wondering when the next one is, because whenever he sends out stuff, there's all sorts of goodies in there.
All right, Bill, I'm very convinced by your argument, but I feel like you need to say it with a little more Palpatine in your voice.
Do it.
Yes.
No, but it really is excellent. In his most recent one, he actually listed out his top 10 video game series, just because. I'm sorry to tell Jordan that he called out a very special call out to Breath of the Wild, which, as we know, is your favorite game of all time. And
Don't get
you
it.
hate for him to take.
I just don't get it. I don't understand why I'm the only person who dislikes this game. I don't, and like, I seriously, I don't understand why I'm the only person. It's not that people love it. That's cool. Zelda games go all over the place as far as how much people love or hate all of them. I just don't know why I'm the only one who hates this. I'm a mutant and I don't understand it.
To our listeners, if you too hate Breath of the Wild, please write us at cosmerestudies@gmail.com and let Jordan know that he is not alone in the universe.
And if you love it, that's fine. I'm not hating on people who love it. I want to make this clear. I can see the reasons why some people love it. I don't understand.
If you love Breath of the Wild and you want to ream Jordan out as loudly as possible, please write to us at cosmerestudies@gmail.com.
No. If you really want to stick it to me, you should probably watch my stream as much as possible and let me know.
And comment in the chat there.
Yeah, that's probably the best spot.
If you really want him to see your complaints, also you can give him bits.
Yeah.
And it'll pop up on the screen, and then he'll feel really bad about it.
What says
bits,
I hate you more than money? I just don't know.
Wow, we are absolute shills. Anyway.
And if you would like us to shill and you are a business, let us know.
So anyway, they're not here for the shill. They're here for the Cosmere talk. Now, since this is an interlude, it actually likely takes place a significant way into the book is one thing I've thought about. You know, there are a few things that have happened and you're like, what happened in the intervening year between Oathbringer and, you know, it's like, what's going on? And you realize, oh wait, we're probably at least a fifth of the way through the book at this point. So something could have happened. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So the very first thing we realize is this is a Syl chapter. Like this is from Syl's perspective.
And I don't think we've really had anything from her.
We haven't ever
before.
No, she's never been.
We've never had anything from a spren's perspective, as far as I can remember.
I don't think you're right. Yeah.
I wonder if we'll get a pattern interlude too. That'd be interesting.
So anyway, Syl is just dashing around Urithiru. You know, she's basically Navi-ing all over the place. And I like that she chooses different people each day, and today she decides to choose that she'll be visible.
I'm sorry, the fact that you call her Navi, I'm just imagining every time in Way of Kings because she kept annoying him. It's just, hey, listen.
Have you never made this comparison in your head?
No, I haven't actually.
Oh my gosh!
Boom! Right there. I just look at this. Hey, listen.
I mean, you've got a young warrior.
She's just Z-targeting everywhere. It's insane.
That's how he's able to do so well in combat. But anyway, she chooses to make herself visible to the children. And she's like, she could never admit this to Kaladin, but she didn't like people being respectful all the time.
just some, moderate amount, want to have balance.
Like, it's fun because we see her preening in front of Rock all the time because he treats her like a little god. And she's like, this is great. Why everybody should treat me this way, but she's like, honestly, I don't like it all the time. So the kids see her and they giggle and they smile and it's just wonderful. And then she decides to visit Cord. So Cord is Rock's daughter.
Do we know how old she is? She's pretty much an adult, I'm assuming so. I
think she's a young adult.
Young adult, okay.
I thought that. I'll look it up on the Coppermind real quick.
Okay. She's old enough for Rock to give her the shard plate that he got.
Yeah, which I'd forgotten about that.
I'd also forgotten about it, and then it's just like, oh right, because he killed Amaram.
So it's his, but he's not a warrior, even though he can use a bow.
She's the eldest daughter.
Yes, she's his oldest. So. But I like that her name is apparently a poem about what was it about
a wedding band?
A wedding band, that's right. And then of course her immediate thought is, I should have a name that's a poem. I wonder if the Unkalaki have a name for me that's a poem. And I love how just her thought process just darts from one thing to another. It's very, very subtle, but it fits her incredibly well.
Oh, so well.
It's a great bit of writing that Brandon did
it's very fun. I had
pin down her character.
when I did play-by-post RPGs online. I had a character who was very Syl-like in that respect, that she would stream of consciousness herself like all over the place and bop between things. So it's kind of fun to see it done by someone even better than I could write it.
Yeah.
Brandon's slightly better than we are at this.
Just a smidge. He's done a bit more writing than me.
Also, what is Cord doing? When we see her,
she's cooking.
Just like father, like daughter. She's making soup.
Yeah.
She's cooking. Yep. And it's just sort of, it's a family tradition. I kind of love that. And the scene is really interesting because she visits 3 people over the course of this interview. She visits Cord, she visits the Stormfather, and she visits Dalinar. And it's interesting, in this situation, there are no words spoken between her and Cord. She just she turns into a ball of steam and into a tuber and rolls across the table and tries to feel what a tuber would feel like as it's being cut up. It's a very interesting, but it brings a lot to her.
It's very philosophical. It reminds me of that scene in early Simpsons where Lisa is trying to open up Bart's mind and she's just like, what is the sound of a one-handed clap? And it's supposed to be this very metaphysical thing. And Syl thinks about these things. What would it be like to be a tuber? And because she's a spren and her kind are concepts and phenomena, it's not so insane to be like, what would it be like to be a tuber? Because it's an idea, it's a concept.
What would it be like to be honor or wind? She does this. You're right.
And so it's one of these things that Brandon's just so good at getting into the mind of something that should be completely alien to him.
Mm-hmm.
And
then, it's just really cool. And then she goes over to examine the shard plate, and this is where we get some new information. Mm-hmm. And the theory crafters are just sort of internally squealing because the prevailing theory has been that shard plate is made of the lesser spren for each order, such as wind spren for windrunners. And she mentions that it, just like a shard blade, was a corpse. Well, lots of corpses. And so, which matches that theory perfectly. So, again, it hasn't been fully confirmed, but it's seeming much more likely that that's the case.
Let the bodies hit the floor. Let the bodies hit the floor.
And, but she also notices that rather than pain that you get from a dead shard blade, this shard plate exudes this feeling of contentment. Now, can we speculate around that? I'm trying to figure out what that could mean. What do y'all think?
They had to have made a conscious choice to be okay with it then. If they're content, then I don't know how else you could make shard plate without either some kind of exchange for I give you A and you become the shard plate, or they agree to it for some other reason. I don't know how that would work, but if something is content,
I think of it. I think of them. The lesser spren is more of animals.
Kind of the animals of the spren world.
Because animals can mimic humans. I mean, heck, there's an entire, volume of Imager that's dedicated to nothing but animals that think they're people. Mm-hmm. My favorite being when an elephant stole a guy's hat and put it on its head. And I was just like, what? The thing that I love about it, though, is the idea that it's content. I think it's more about its limited capacity. Only something that's truly sentient can sit there and regret passing because we're worried about the future. If you're a thing that only exists in the now, I think when you pass, you're content because you're fine. Because You know, you're
Just
not
said
worried
now.
about the future. It's just, it happened and you're done.
That's true. Yeah, kind of.
And so that's sort of my thinking. Now the question is, how do you get, you know, the main assumption people are saying is obviously Windrunners. It's probably Windspren who would be their shard plate, because we see that there is something of a connection between Windspren and Honor Spren. We don't understand what it is, and Syl doesn't understand what it is.
Yeah.
I just had a thought. Is now when a shard blade dies, they're basically, the bond is broken between them and their radiant. And they're cut off, and they are, in a way, alone. With shard plate, because there's many of them bound together, they really aren't alone. They're part of a greater a collective. I wonder if that has anything to do with it.
The other thing,
with connection is such an important.
The other thing that I've sort of theorized is that the shard plate is sort of like the squires of Spren, that they somehow do it through a connection with the Spren itself. And for them, there's no broken promise if their bond is between them and the Spren.
That's true. It's an interesting thought. So now this shard plate, remember, this was Amaram's shard plate, was it not?
That's our guess. We don't. It isn't specifically stated.
Well, because isn't that the one that Rock won though? Because he killed Amaram.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it would have been Amaram's.
Because Oathbringer should be his as well, but he refused to take it up.
Because Amaram had Sadius, inherited as the new Sadius. That's true. He gave it back to Dalinar. But yeah, and there was one thing that she mentioned, though, is that Syl mentioned the others weren't like her, talking about the other Honor Spren, except maybe Rua. Now remember, Rua is Lopin's Spren.
The Lopin Spren. The B is important.
So the fact that she could, and Rua is a very, very expressive, interesting, opinionated, weird little Spren. So I love the fact that she says the others weren't like her, except maybe this guy.
Maybe rough.
It makes me happy.
And of course, he bonded to the Lopin.
And immediately learns how to make quadruple rude gestures.
Yep.
Okay, so next Syl goes out searching for Kaladin, and she starts doing some introspection and some pondering upon Kaladin's condition. There was a line that really stood out to me. She said, perhaps he would be satisfied as a surgeon, and it would be good for him not to have to kill anymore. Why is Kaladin more of a surgeon now and not killing? Somebody in our Discord channel, I believe, I don't remember who, I think it was the professor.
I've been kind of
it was somebody in there. I know that Erevar pushed against it because he didn't like hearing it, but the speculation is that Lirin may not be long for this world,
especially going from that,
because Kaladin seems
the other
Kaladin seems to be in a very deep depression, and is now working as a surgeon,
which would make sense for him to do if his dad has passed away and he wants to be closer to his dad after he's gone.
Now, the counter argument to that is that later on, when Syl is talking to Dalinar, she says, "Thank you for forcing him to change his duties." So the fact that he's working as a surgeon may be Dalinar's doing, and not Kaladin's depression and desire and feeling that he's disappointed his father and all that stuff.
I mean, I don't see the two theories as mutually exclusive, because I think that hypothetically Lirin dies. I could totally see Kaladin, who has a problem with taking too much responsibility for things already, trying to burn the candle at both ends and make up for his father being gone, while at the same time trying to lead the Windrunners and having to be physically ordered. Dude, pick a lane. You're going to squish like grape.
Yeah, Jedi, was that the next Karate Kid reference?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. deep cuts. So Jedi BRB in chat mentions, isn't Kaladin always depressed? Yes, this is true. This is a very particularly dark time.
This is a really bad one.
I'm just imagining it's the sulk. That's my secret. I'm always depressed.
I'm always. Wow.
Oh,
So she makes she makes an interesting metaphor. She refers to Kaladin having two brains. Or no, she refers to herself as having two brains, which is the responsible brain and the child brain. So, the brain that starts developing more when she bonds with Kaladin, and then the ooh, a pretty flower brain that comes.
Hey, look, a flower.
But then she compares that to Kaladin having his, quote, light brain and dark brain. Now, this is absolutely fascinating. One of the things that I love seeing other people discuss is just how well Brandon has landed on aspects of things like depression. Just because, having gone through major times of depression, he really, really somehow gets it. Although I don't think that he actually suffers from it himself. I think he's mentioned that before.
Yeah, I think he mentions that he's generally pretty happy person.
But he has such a good understanding of it.
Well,
and I think he also uses a lot of real life resources and talks to people and has people that he will talk to about it who have experienced these things, like you said, with the person who's lost vision, and also the people who have lost limbs and things like that too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean he does the very thorough forwards where he thanks a bunch of people. The one that stood out to me in Oathbringer was he talked about. He's like, in particular, I think so and so for explaining chemical dependence, and their experiences with it to me, blah blah blah. And it was just one of those things. And then you get the Teft chapters, and you're just like, oh, I see why now.
But beyond that, though, he's able to internalize it to the point where he can write from that perspective, and it works, which is very difficult. And I have seen done very wrong multiple times. So it's just really, really impressive the way he's able to dig into that and get into that mindset.
Well, now I remember another one that tends to stand out to a lot of people is the Yesna chapters, because Brandon's a man of faith, but a lot of people who started off just reading these books were surprised to find that out after reading Yesna. They're like, holy cow, like, how did he do this so well?
Do someone who's very much not.
And not only so well, but so respectfully.
Yeah.
Because, it blows their mind that, somebody who is, a person of faith can treat these ideas so well, or vice versa.
And bringing it back... Sorry, I was going to say, bringing it back to this particular part, it's a lot like Syl, who is trying to constantly put herself in the shoes of other people, and that's her entire goal this chapter.
She wants to get inside Kaladin's head.
In some ways, I think Syl might be the new character that's the most like Brandon.
Interesting. In this chapter, in some ways, absolutely, I'll agree with you on that. That's an interesting speculation. Okay, so speaking of speculation, actually, Syl heads out into the high storm and she starts flying around with the wind spren and starts speculating on she has a very existential moment here. She's like, where did sentient spren come from? Who are we? Why are we here? Where did we come from? And she puts out a couple of possibilities. First, she's like, maybe, and it's interesting because it's basically creationism versus evolution. Was she created out of pure investiture by honor, or did she evolve and grow from windspren?
That she grown out of the windspren.
It's like, this is a very, very deep thought for this, flighty little character that was fascinated by a beetle.
Yeah. We've never heard about peak spren before, right?
No, that was a new one.
She mentioned
that's one I've never heard of. Yeah.
I was like, is a peak spren? What did they do?
My theory is that it has something to do with the the Horn Eater peaks. She talks about them being higher spren, and we know they can see spren. I'm wondering if it's a special type of spren up that high over there that might be related to why they can see things.
I'm trying to think. Are there any Radiant orders that we don't know what type of spren they bond?
I could look it up.
I'm trying to think.
I don't remember for sure.
I think we know
names.
all of them.
I'll just keep going. Keep talking.
In which case, that would be a special
other.
I guess we don't know what Stone Wards spawn, do we?
Stone Wards yet unknown.
Yeah, we don't know Stone because when Brandon was talking about Oathbringer, which, minor aside for a moment, during that Comic-Con panel, Brandon really sent the theorists just like made him go a little bit crazy because somebody asked the question, what kind of spren is Oathbringer? And Brandon apparently misread it, just really quickly, and he said, well, it's not technically a spren because it's an honor blade, and everybody's just thinking, wait, Oathbringer's an honor blade? Brandon has since come back and confirmed that was a misspeak. He basically misread the question. So if you were wondering if Oathbringer is an honor blade based on that, he wasn't. But he said it would, it's a Stone Ward's blade, and it would be the corresponding spren. So there is a chance that I'm guessing that peak spren might be Stone Wards, which would make sense. So
the only two ones that we don't know the bond for, you're correct on Stone Wards. The other one that I didn't think about, we don't technically know what Truth Watchers bond.
I think they're light spren.
Are they?
We don't know because all they've said about Gliss is a red crystalline structure formed by the Nahel bond with Renarin Kholin. This grants Renarin the ability to use the surges associated with Order of Truth Watchers. Prior to forming the bond, Gliss was corrupted by the unmade Ja'anat, but he never actually said what type of spren they are, just what they look like.
No, I think Tamber's a light spren. I think the Will Shapers have light spren.
Let's see. I saw that one. Let's see.
Yeah. Sorry.
Light spren or Will Shaper. Yeah. But yeah, I never thought about the fact that he never actually said what Gliss is a corrupted spren of. We just know what he looks like.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
I completely forgotten about that fact, but once again, the people behind the Coppermind, they're thorough.
Oh, they're so thorough. Thank you so much for that.
Before we move on, there was one thing that I thought was interesting was how she talked about the storm being music, and she kept talking about it in that and to the fact that, like in rooms where there's too many people, she can't focus because she's trying to hear all the different people and focus on the different conversations. But with the storm, it's not that she gets distracted that way, but it's just one big voice basically, and so she can listen to that melody and work with it and things like that. And
there's a lot of
it was kind of fun reading all that.
There's a lot of speculation about how, because there is definitely music and harmonics in Roshar. It's an important part of the makeup of the world. The other thing we were talking about peak spren though was Rock. There's a lot of speculation that Rock is not going to be a Windrunner, but he's going to be a Stone Ward. And for that to be peak spren, it would be too poetic,
That would be nice.
Much like his daughter's name.
Much like his daughter's name, which is a poem about a wedding band.
I'm proud of me right now. I'm really proud of me right now.
Okay, so as she's dancing through, suddenly everything gets all weird, and she's like, I know what this is. This is... Okay, when this first happened, I was worried that this was actually an Odium moment. Just because everything went still. And I was thinking, oh no, he's going to come yell at her. But fortunately, it was the Stormfather. So, Brandon, you gave me a brief... You gave me palpitations, Brandon. But...
Do it.
But yeah, so suddenly the Stormfather comes up and starts talking to Syl. And apparently she kind of, because she wanted something, it kind of summoned him. Is that how y'all took it?
Well, sort of this that he's aware of her, and she's probably one of the few honor spren in it, probably the only honor spren in that particular part of the storm, and he probably can sense something about her.
She mentioned that he came to her with need or desire or something, and so
he said, "You have come wishing," is what he says.
Wishing, that's what it was, with wishing. I like that wording.
I also, even though I know it's been in all the books, I still just love that he's always got caps locks on.
All caps.
Yep.
You know who's coming.
And if you listen to the audiobook, this is one of the things that Michael Kramer just nails, in my opinion, is when he does Dalinar's and the Stormfather's voices. It resonates in a great way.
I just love it. He has no inside voice because he's literally the outside voice incarnate.
Yes.
But what Syl wants is to experience the darkness that Kaladin's feeling firsthand. She wants to understand that deeply. And what she's asking for, it immediately sounds dangerous, and this is confirmed by both the Stormfather and later Dalinar, that, like this, that's too far.
Don't stare too deeply into the abyss, lest the abyss look back.
And then we have the Stormfather and Syl's little mermaid moment where he's like, "You give too much of yourself to that human." She's like, "You can't," and she has her petulant ways, and you can't tell me. I love this line though. "You can't tell me to make choices, then berate me when I make ones you do not like." Like, she calls him to task right there, and she has a good point.
Oh man.
It's a really good discussion between the two of them, because it's another one of those. Brandon's really good at letting both sides have their good points. And the other thing I love about it is I love how the Stormfather, he has grown, but she's definitely taken on aspects of Kaladin. Like, in the middle of her impassioned speech, she talks about how, this world belongs to everyone, the spren, the humans, and even the singers. And you're just like, yeah, this is the same thing that sends Kaladin into his existential crises.
It's true. I mean, but that's, we take on aspects of the people we associate with, so it makes sense.
It's okay. It's not like Kaladin's nature has ever caused Syl any problems.
Oh dear. I also like that. Part of me wonders if this is a little bit of Brandon writing to the theory crafters, because Syl assumes that Kaladin is going to be Dalinar's champion, and the Stormfather's just like, you speak as if you're certain that's the way it's going to turn out, and it's just, it almost feels like Brandon said, "Hey, I did not confirm your theory. I haven't denied it, but I have not confirmed it." And so it just, and then
it's Seth. It's got to be Seth. I want it to be Seth so much. Okay, no, I really want it to be Kelsier, but that's dumb. So, but Seth would be so much fun. Bill and I were discussing this. I just want it. Nightblood in one hand, his shard blade in the other, dual wielding. It's gonna be
as a whirling dervish type.
The other thing I really want for this next book, and it's so stupid, but I want it so bad. I want Kaladin and Seth having to train together in the sky. I want it so good. It'd be so much fun.
They train together on the ground under Vasher. Yeah, no, I'm excited. Okay, so Syl then basically says, so what you're saying is are you saying you can't do it, or that you won't do it? And this, in regards to bonding her deeper to Kaladin so that she can understand his depression. And the Stormfather's response is interesting. He says, "I have the power, but not the ability."
That's how I feel every time I open up Premiere Pro and try to edit anything in video.
See, for me, it feels more like I have the strength to do what you want, but I don't have the force of will. I cannot make myself do it.
See, I think it's an expertise thing, the way he's talking. But the problem is you could read it both ways.
Yeah, it's not completely clear, and I don't see him clarifying that.
Yeah.
No, he's made it perfectly clear to Dalinar that if he doesn't want to clarify, he won't.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There are so many little things that are sprinkled throughout this interlude that I kind of get why Brandon chose this one specifically to release at this point, because there are little tidbits like confirmations of theories and stuff like that. Because one of the next things she mentions is she needed to stay because she wants to follow the storm farther west, but she said she needed to stay within a few miles of Kaladin or her connection to the physical realm would start to fade and her mind would weaken. Now this sort of happens in the first book when she goes to get the Nightbane, I think is what it's called. Yeah, the deadly Nightbane. And but that's still the case. I remember a few people speculating about whether a what's it called, a Radiant could leave Roshar and just leave the spren behind, but apparently it would be very bad for the spren. So yeah.
The other thing she dropped was a bunch of knowledge on her old Radiant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we hadn't heard anything about him other than that he existed and died.
Mm-hmm. And she says his name when she's talking to Dalinar, but it almost seems like she's remembering in like tidbits, and as the scene goes on, she remembers more and more and more details about him. It almost feels like, or she just
it feels like the spren memory is almost like a spotlight that, if they focus it, they can start to see it again, but they don't ever see it all at one time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it's really interesting. She also dropped one comment that really stood out to me. She said she wished she could talk to objects like Shallan did and hear each one's story. She's a spren, and Shallan can communicate with, quote, things better than Syl can. Like that, I feel like there's something to that claim.
Well, it's because she can talk to spren. What Shallan can do is talk to the actual idea of an object. Syl can't talk to a boat. Shallan can.
Yeah.
The best conversationalist ever, Stick.
Or Stick. Random aside, the best card in the new Stormlight Archive Call to Adventure game is the Stick of Resolve. It's basically a refreshing card that once you use it, it refreshes, and it's just but to use it, you have to say, "I am a stick." I just think it's great.
No,
just the fact that Shallan could communicate with objects better than Syl, I find that fascinating.
Yeah, the other thing that I find interesting about that statement is because she wants to understand all the perspectives, but
I'm sorry, chat's going crazy just saying "I am a stick" over and over, and it's making me. I love it.
A Russian accent. I am stick.
I am stick.
Hear us all do fake Russian accents. It's great.
In Soviet Roshar, stick is you.
I am.
Okay, so next, Syl decides to visit Dalinar. Which, this is a fun kind of conversation that you don't really think much about, because really the only person that Syl talks to is Kaladin. She'll talk to people when she's with Kaladin. This is really the first time we've seen her talk to people other than Kaladin without Kaladin even being there.
I'm sorry, I'm just trying to think. When have we seen her talk to anyone else?
Rock.
She talks to Rock.
Does she? I don't remember her talking to Rock. I remember her preening around Rock. I don't remember her talking to her. I don't know that we've seen
her have the conversation, but it feels like she has spoken to him, or at the very least he's spoken to her. He's acknowledged.
The very first time Kaladin realized that Rock could see her, they had a conversation around it. And she talked to her. She's like, "Ooh, okay. I like him."
So I get a feeling that she has talked to him, even if it hasn't been very deep conversations.
Like, because he bows in respect to her, and she's like, "Oh, this is great." And so it's not like a full, deep conversation, but they've conversed.
Also, I love that she goes to Dalinar at this point, because it's very much like the child, where it's just like, you go ask one parent, they say no, so you go to the other parent and see what they say. You're just looking for a second opinion.
I have lived this truth so many times. But as the parent.
Now I really want Syl to have a conversation with Navani. That would be fun.
It would be terrifying for her. Navani just strikes me as the person who everyone's just like, yeah, no, let's stay away from her.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, so she also mentions Dalinar is always awake for high storms, whatever the hour. That seems very appropriate. First off, because the high storms would send him into his fever dreams, but now he is bonded to the storm itself. Mm-hmm. And so, like, I don't know if it's a respect thing, if it's a duty thing, if it's just a Dalinar thing. But
it could also just be because he spent so many of those high storms in a coma that he might have just an aversion at this point to being in that state unless he has to.
It's also his opportunity to use the telephone.
Yeah.
For like the Uber Skype calls.
Yeah, what you pay for the extra service.
Exactly.
Look, extra bandwidth is expensive, people.
And then she mentions that he doesn't get surprised when she just sort of pops into visibility, but like other people do. And he's like, but, you know, they should be used to spren popping in and out because, you know, this is always happening around him. And then I love her line. They seem to find her more disturbing than a glory spren. She's supposed to take that as a compliment.
Well, it's sort of one of those things where what's expected is, you know, even if it's the exact same thing, if it's not expected, it's uncomfortable. It's like our roommate recently said. He's just like, why is it okay to tell people to have a nice day, but if you tell people to enjoy the next 24 hours, it sounds threatening?
Because it sounds like you're putting a limit on something. There's a very hard end at the end of that. And then, of course, we get confirmation that Dalinar is the one who changed whatever Kaladin's duties are at the moment, whether he's, you know, off fighting duty or what. But and we know that, of course, he's working as a surgeon. Mm-hmm. And he has some very, very profound things to say, because every time Dalinar opens his mouth, something profound is going to come out.
Which is so hilarious now that we've met old Dalinar, who's just a meathead.
Yeah.
We fight. Shardblade.
When you're that competent, when you're drunk out of your mind, and then suddenly you become the most sober person in the entire world, essentially, there's all sorts of, you know, suddenly it's just like taking the weights off. But he says to her, we each have our own void bringers to slay brightness Sylphrena. I like that he calls her Sylphrena. He calls her by her full name.
Doesn't he call her Ancient Daughter as well?
He does. He starts out with Ancient Daughter, and I think the Stormfather calls her Sylphrena too. Sylphrena.
Mm-hmm. He says, no man can judge another man's heart or trials, for no man truly knows them.
That's one of I still don't know where I pulled it from, but just the quote, everyone's fighting a battle you can't see.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah, and it's I think I've seen various lines about how, like, yes, this challenge may be easy for you, but you don't understand how hard it is for this person. Mm-hmm. And like everybody's battles are different, and they're different levels of difficulty for them.
Absolutely. And then Sylphrena starts asking if he can use his powers to do what she asked the Stormfather to do. So and he immediately...
Do I get the cookies or not?
And he immediately says... What? I missed something.
Never mind. Go ahead.
Okay. But he says, what do you know of my powers? And suddenly there's just like, okay, here's a little mini info dump about bondsmiths. Mm-hmm. But again, it fits very well into the conversation. It's not, well, of course you know that da-da-da-da. It's not the butler and maid conversation that they talk about in writing excuses.
Yeah. Well, and it's also, it's very in line with Syl, whose memory is so
Spotty.
yeah. And these are things that what was the line she had in I think it was Way of Kings where she or no, it was Words of Radiance and it was Pattern. Where Pattern says, of course it's this thing, and she's like and Shallan's like, why didn't you tell me earlier? He's like, I knew it. I knew it once I thought of it. Like and it's just this very spren way of thinking.
It's basically remember. Yeah, it's
It's like they have all the information in folders, but until they tap that folder, they don't know what's inside it.
Yeah, their memory is I like that. Their memory is hierarchical, not a web.
You've got to run the program. It can't just be sitting there inside of a file. So anyway, we get this little mini info dump though. Apparently, bondsmiths formed the original Oath Pact and existed long before the Knights Radiant were founded. That is interesting. That is very, very interesting.
Do you mind reading this part out? Just if you had it,
don't have it up right now.
I can read it. Do you want me to read the line that she said?
Yeah.
Your abilities are what made the original Oath Pact, she said, and they existed and were named long before the Knights Radiant were founded. A bondsmith connected the heralds to Braze, made them immortal, and locked our enemies away. A bondsmith bound other surges and brought humans to Roshar, fleeing their dying world. A bondsmith created, or at least discovered, the Nihil Bond, the ability of spren and humans to join together into something better. You connect things, Dalinar, realms, ideas, people.
Well, we remember him connecting realms.
Yeah.
Because that was one of the most epic moments of any book I've ever read.
We still don't know how he did it, and that's what's awesome. No, so much in that statement. First of all, they connected them to Braze.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's interesting. First of all, because that implies they somehow are able to connect people to a different planet, which Brandon has talked about before, because people have asked him, could you could you take this, a spren over here? And it's like, well, it'd be difficult because of their connection to Roshar. And we saw a similar thing with in Secret History with Kelsier having difficulty with each step he took away from Scadrial. It became heavier and heavier.
Yeah.
But somehow a bondsmith was able to connect them to a completely different planet.
Mm-hmm.
So that's impressive.
Yeah, because they're cognitive shadows, and it's.
So
of course,
that by itself,
that means that he literally bound them to hell or damnation, as they call it.
Yeah.
Who knows? Maybe it was quite fine before the Oath Pact.
But yeah, it locked away the enemy.
As soon as the heralds come in, there goes the neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
But then on top of it, then there's that line about. Could you read it again right after? What was the sentence right after that one, Amy?
He surveyed the frosted landscape freshly painted with snow.
No. After the Braze line.
Is that a bondsmith bound other surges and brought humans to Roshar, fleeing their dying world?
Or do you want his?
Yeah, that one. The fleeing the dying. So it implies that they did these bonding things before they came to this planet.
So the previous planet. So it makes you wonder what that magic was then.
Well, they talked about how surges destroyed their old world, which through word of Brandon and all sorts of speculation and other stuff we know as Ashen.
So, but this is the thing that's interesting about that. Because we've only seen bonds with spren, and we've only seen bondsmith bonds with very specific the highest of high spren type of thing. Stormfather, the Night Watcher, and the sibling. That means, at least implies, that there was something like that on Ashen.
Well, remember... Oh, no, I'm trying to remember.
I wonder if there was something like spren there that they made
or
bonds with.
was the sibling the thing that was on Ashen?
Or Odium was on Ashen.
Yeah.
Oh.
So
that's my point. Is like, how did they do this? Like, what was what were they bonded to have this amount of juice? Because that's a lot of juice. You gotta squeeze that orange pretty hard to get that much juice.
Yeah. The other line is a bondsmith bound other surges. Like that,
Do
that's
they mean binding the surges to other people, like binding the surge to a person?
I don't
Or
know.
it's not specified, I guess.
Or multiple to themselves.
Well, so this is my theory on that line. Isn't it kind of interesting that all these bonds are paired in some way, shape, or form with each order?
There's always two per order.
And it's a very specific ordered pair because they're it's dominoes one after another because windrunners get adhesion and gravitation, skybreakers get gravitation division, dustbringers division abrasion, and just one after another, all connected in some way that is very ordered. That looks like a very designed system to me. It's not the randomness of the powers that come on Scadrial, for example, where some of them don't feel connected at all.
Brandon has also said that if somebody, for example, brought a Sion from Cell, and because there is a sort of nail bond, it would give surges, but differently. It's like, so there could be other surges or perhaps different pairings or something.
And so I think that's what, when it says that they bound the surges, I get that, like, that's sort of my impression is that that's what they're talking about, which gets to the void light things are interesting because the void light powers seem to be, they don't seem to get dual powers from the looks of it. Like, it seems to me like they only get the one surge of some kind. That's my theory anyway, that there's something different with what's going on with the void light, and that's why their powers aren't doubled up. It's because it's not ordered the way the bondsmith powers were.
No, I'm not sure. It's interesting.
The other thing was when sorry, this is an aside, she talked about Urathera. She talked about how it glowed with a weird light.
Yeah.
The only weird light I know about is void light.
Or Stormlight.
Yeah, but it does. I feel like if it was Stormlight, she would call it Stormlight.
And I worry that it's probably not void light because she's seen Voidbringers and things like that. So she would name it that, I think.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing about it is it glows with a weird light.
I wonder if part of it has to do with the fact that she's partially in the cognitive realm. And, each person sort of has that, like,
that glow.
In Secret History, we've seen that sort of little fire for each individual soul. And now Urathera is populated with a lot of people inside, so that's just my thought.
The two theories I'm working on in my head are actually, and people have actually brought them up in chat kind of, was one sort of a filtered or corrupted Stormlight. Because we know the Urathera didn't, I believe we know it had the sibling in it. And so I'm wondering if there's something the sibling's nature does somehow filters it in some way. And the other theory that I've been in my head sort of kicking around is Texas Blades theory. That the sibling might be to Odium what the Stormfather is to Honor. Or that the sibling is a mix of honor and cultivation, and doing this changes things.
And I think Brandon has indicated that the second is closer to the truth. That second theory.
Yeah, but it's a big Raffo either way.
Yeah.
Yes. So.
Yeah, no, it's just that one line, just a weird light, and I'm just like, I feel like you would have named it if it were the other two.
Yeah, that she would know, which, if it was one of those two.
Mm-hmm. So,
well,
anyway, we weren't done with the rest of the statements. Sorry.
There's also the speculation that Honor's perpendicularity was originally at or near Urathera because it talks about staying close to Honor, about it being built close to Honor and stuff like that. But we know now, through again words of Brandon, that Honor's perpendicularity is much more. Not fluid, but its location is not static anymore.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah, it's there's so many potentialities. I love it.
mm-hmm.
So what were the other
Well,
things that it said in there? It was
They
talk
brought
about
humans to Road, and they
discovered the
the
nail bond.
yeah. Just love this casually discovered it.
you know.
Well, first she says like created or made, but she said, well, discovered really. But the fact that it's just like, hey, look, we can bond to thoughts.
Hey,
Well, it's very much like Vasher talking about the five scholars and their experiments with breath.
Mm-hmm.
Just where they don't know the limits of the power because it's not like Scadrial, which is thing A is thing A, thing B is thing B, and it does these things. You can accumulate power in a way in these systems that you can't do in other systems, and because of it, they keep like, okay, well, but what if we get, we've gone from a butt ton. What if we get a crap load of breath now?
Is that so? That's a crap load is more than a butt ton?
Definitely. Because,
okay.
But we have to start, it starts becoming a creme load after that.
Shake my head at you.
Whatever. You love me. I'm great.
I don't need potty.
Wasn't potty, it was creme. Completely different and family friendly.
But, well, it also is that is why crossing the magic systems is so broken and why Hoyd is really one of the most terrifying individuals out there.
Don't cross the streams. It would be bad.
He is mixing and just making this wonderful magical cocktail that is Hoyd. Okay, so again, going back to Syl wanting to just really firsthand understand what Kaladin is going through. Again, Dalinar drops some knowledge. He says, you can help him without knowing exactly what he's feeling. You can be available for him to lean on. And then he says, and he goes on and he's like, but that's the advice I'd give somebody else. For you, I don't think it's quite right. She says, I try. Sometimes he doesn't even seem to want me. He says, that's likely when he needs you the most. We can never know another man's heart, right, Sylphrena, but we all know what it is to live and have pain. And so it's almost talking about, rather than directly feeling everything they have, it's more of a developing empathy.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you don't have to go through what they're going through to understand them.
But you need to be open to trying to understand it and being available.
Mm-hmm. And her immediate response is she decides that rather than understanding exactly what Kaladin's feeling, if she can remember what she was like when she was in her, what she called dark brain, then she can use that to help them. Again, using your own experiences to develop empathy and understand somebody else.
Yeah.
So
but
yeah.
What I love about that is I think that actually sort of mirrors how we tend to go through wanting to help people. Mm-hmm. At first, we tend to want to. At first, you go through the just snap out of it phase because you don't quite understand what it is they're going through. Then you try and look for the magic thing that'll help get them out. Have you tried
tried yoga?
Yeah. But things like that, things that have, maybe worked for you or worked for someone else, or in her case, trying to come up with a literal magical way to understand him because she feels like she doesn't, and thus she has no clue what to say to him. But it takes
to be happy.
Yeah, but it takes Dalinar who has look. We know his pain and the fact that we're not allowed to have it, but
yeah, he's called dibs on his own pain.
Yeah, but he can sit there and think to himself, okay, what? Because this is dangerous, so I don't want you doing that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so she just refers, she's like, I think this has helped. And she's got a plan.
Mm-hmm.
And so.
Which, that's scary. Yeah. Syl with a plan.
That's awesome. All right, so
No,
thanks
no,
to
no.
our
That's
patrons.
Lyft.
Go to your room.
I am in my room.
Thanks to our patrons, we're able to hold our monthly giveaways. All of the giveaways, of course, are open to everyone, and they are free to enter. For our most recent giveaway, we have put up a Mistborn lanyard. It has the Elementic symbols across it. It's in black and red, and it says Mistborn. It's really cool. You can hang, a name tag at the next con you go to get your book signed by Brandon. Once conventions actually are happening in person, you can put your keys on it. You can just swing it around and hit stuff with it. Do whatever you want. It's your lanyard if you win it. So, and so Jordan, do you want to give us the magic number?
I do. I will give you the magic number. I will click the button that says generate, and it'll give us one.
You didn't generate yet. My fingers hurt.
2.
Number is 2.
Dos.
So that one goes to Funnyman04 on Twitter.
Hey!
So congratulations to that, and we will get that sent out.
That's pretty impressive. Like the number 4 funny man. There's not a lot of people ahead of you at that point.
All right, and for our next giveaway, because it's been so long, we didn't actually announce, or we didn't do the actual giveaway. So this is time for us to announce our next giveaway. We are giving away a knit cap with the Bridge 4 tattoo, Kaladin's Shash brand on the forehead of it. So, if you really, really just want to be as much like Kaladin as you can be, well, this will get you even closer. So,
everyone knows Kaladin's really big on beanies.
Of course. Special thanks to Brandon Sanderson's online store at store.brandonsanderson.com for sending us so many amazing goodies to share with our listeners. You are awesome. And if you want great Brandon Sanderson swag, it's a great place to get it. It's also probably one of the few legal places to get it. So, now we do love hearing from our listeners. So keep on sending in your questions, your comments, your feedback, everything. You can ask us about the Cosmere. You can drop us an idea for a topic that you would like for us to discuss during the show. While you're at it, we'd love to hear your feedback, how you think we're doing, as well as any interesting theories that you might have about what's going on in the Cosmere. And now is really the best time to start speculating with the next Stormlight book coming out. You can send all of your questions and suggestions in a brief, concise email to cosmerestudies@gmail.com, and we might read it as a part of the show. Or if you would prefer to send us a physical letter, we have a P.O. Box at the Sandersonian Institute of Cosmere Studies, P.O. Box 970063, Orem, Utah 84097. Now, outside of the podcast, we've each got our own personal projects going on. Amy, where can we find you?
So, I'm on several places. My Facebook is Coincidence Cosplay and Props. My Twitter is @CoincidenceCosp, because my name is too long. My Instagram is @coincidence_cosplay, and my website is www.coincidencecosplay.com. So I have been kind of dealing with my house more than cosplay stuff, but I have my arbor just about done, and it's 7 feet tall and 4 feet across, and I will put pictures up on my thing, on my stuff, my social media things. So after that, I will finally get to work on finishing Vin and
Nice.
getting more stuff filmed so I can do videos for you guys as bonus content, as well as it will later go to some of my normal YouTube channel. So that's kind of been my life, is dealing with all of the wood.
And Jordan, how about you? What do you got
I have obviously various streams going on, but mostly Amiibo stuff. In the meantime, if you're not into Amiibo, I am working on a secret project that I will probably be ready to talk about next time we do this. So, normally I tell you to go find me on twitch.tv/splicestream. Instead, I just want you to sort of sit there and ponder what it could be. Mysteriously.
Speculate. And when I'm not here, I have another podcast with my friend Dylan about board games. It's called The Innkeeper's Table. New episodes come out Friday mornings, and you can find it pretty much where you can find any podcast. Go ahead and listen to us on there, or you can check out our Instagram page at Innkeeper's Table Podcast. There's a direct link to the audio over there on the profile. The most recent episode that we did was about board game expansions and where exactly those fit into the hobby. And the next one that's coming out this Friday is about the first step when you want to host your own game night, which is planning. You know, how to actually get the whole thing going and get it started and figure out who's coming and all that kind of stuff. So, you know, go listen to that. And it's pretty good conversations. I've also got a bunch of board game reviews over at www.innkeeperstable.com. And I post about games on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at the profile at Innkeeper's Table. For those of you who want to support the show but cannot become patrons just yet for whatever reason, we would love it if you just let your friends know about the show. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast and to like and subscribe over on youtube.com/Cosmere Studies. All right. Any final thoughts about this interlude before we head out, guys?
It's just really fun. Like once I reread it a few more times, I'm sure I will find other little nuggets to, you know, super cool.
I love that we can vamp for about an hour or so based on one single
chapter.
Not even that. It's just the interlude, right? So it's a little shorter than most of his chapters.
A little bit, yeah.
But
there's much.
Yes. It is.
There's just so many little tidbits.
Brandon just packs it with so much meat. And meat is delicious.
And Scylla's just such a fun character. And I just love seeing her three different interactions. You know, her interaction with I'm blanking on her name.
Cord.
And just without any words, but very respectful, but not fawning, not interrupting anything. It was just a really cool silent interaction. And then her conversation with the Stormfather, and then a very different conversation around the same subject with Dalinar. It's just I love those different angles and her speculations on, like, she's getting more profound. You know, she's less flighty. Now she still has, like she mentions, the child brain, but the responsible brain is growing, and it's really fascinating to see how it works and how the two work together. In addition to the live episodes of the show that stream on twitch.tv/Innkeeper's Table every 2 weeks on Monday nights at 7:30 p.m. Pacific Time, 10:30 p.m. Eastern, listeners can find our videos on YouTube or audio versions of the podcast on iTunes, Spotify, and just about any other service that carries podcasts by searching for Cosmere Studies. You can also follow us and contact us through Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook under the profile at Cosmere Studies. For our next episode, we're going to be continuing our look into the future. Don't tell the Ardents, because we don't want to get in trouble. As we discuss more Rhythm of War preview chapters, Brandon recently released both the prologue and Chapter 1 on Tor.com. Since we've already kind of discussed an earlier draft of Chapter 1, next week we're going to be focusing more on the prologue. So join us for the discussion in 2 weeks on August 10th at 7:30 p.m. Pacific Time, 10:30 p.m. Eastern at twitch.tv/Innkeeper's Table. Until then, on behalf of Amy, Jordan, and myself, thanks for listening, and remember, there's always another secret.